Thank you, and greetings to those who may be listening in or even watching on YouTube. Thanks for being a part of the chapel journey in that way, and also good morning to everybody who's here. A shout out to those of you who may be watching on live stream around the campus. We have tons of room. Come on down. You might think it's weird for me to wish you a happy Easter today, unless you're in the know. The communities that claim Christian belonging are many in number, and the very largest separation that covers the largest number would be the Western and the Eastern branches of the Christian churches. And the Eastern branches of the Christian churches include the Greek and Russian Orthodox as they were named. When I studied this, I think some of that naming has evolved. But in the Eastern churches, the calendar for Christmas and Easter is slightly different than it is for the Western churches. And here we are in the West, and so most of us think we know when Easter is. But today is the sixth Sunday after Easter for the Western churches, but it's the Sunday of Easter, and Holy Week just took place for millions of people who identify as Christian around the world, one of whom we're going to hear a prayer from today. And so happy Easter. I was taught by a great Catholic scholar about the significance of Easter when I was in postgraduate study at Catholic University, Joe Kamanchak, and what an amazing thing it was to be able to do an independent study with Cardinal Joe. And he was so emphatic. He's like, Jack, Christianity doesn't exist without Easter. Like, Christmas is nice, but if there's not the confession of this resurrection of the person of Jesus, Christianity loses its heart and soul. And it's in the written spreading of its message that the church expands throughout the course of history. People may be wondering, since I wear this interface stole, wow, is Jack gone? Where are the other traditions here? I want to talk about, my theme today is salvation, and it's a word that was a stumble block for me over the course of much of my life. And I interpreted it not really as a child in the Catholic tradition. I grew up as a Catholic kid, but then I became a post-Catholic rebel atheist curious kid, and then eventually in my sobriety I started coming back to a search for faith, and eventually along that way what I had to do was figure out what I was going to do with this idea that I perceived being evangelical and singular in its notion. It was like TV late night faith healers, and it was folks that I had seen become Jesus freaks. And what I realized is that my exterior understanding was uninformed. And over the journey of my sobriety and my faith, today I have the privilege of talking about this term, and I see it along an evolutionary way, just even in my own engagement with it. And the term has a preceding and future history before and after the Easter event. So Judaism is what sets up Easter, because in Judaism you have the forecasted arrival of a Messiah, a Savior, a Mashiach, that will come and set things aright. And then you have a segment of the Jewish community that perceives that in the person of Jesus of Nazareth, this long-awaited hope is manifest. And actually in Islam, you have a retrospective address of the interpretation of Jesus as Messiah that sort of pushes back down the claim, but doesn't, what I see, and I'm nowhere near sufficient expert, I'm looking at a friend of mine on Islam and its teachings, but I know that one of the things as outsiders we hear a lot about is their forecasting of the eternal life predictions in Islam. And that's like a thing that Judaism isn't talking so much about. Judaism, the promise of a Savior is to save the here and now. And there are a lot of Christian scholars who say that Jesus' teachings about salvation are about the here and now. And then, interestingly, as the church starts to churches start to take up traction, they become interested in salvation as this rescue into eternity. And so and Islam's appropriation of a vision of humans rescue into eternity is a thing that gets criticized a lot from the outside. I should do some study on that. Anyway, so salvation is often taught by people who see it in their own way as if it's like a thing, and you can understand what it is, and in fact, like, why are you rejecting this invitation? And I actually think it's way more complex than that, and would that it was like a you are, you're not, and this is exactly what it is, and this is what you're signing up for. You know, I want the small print. I want to know what I'm like doing with this, and I have a tendency to be that way. If people push me to go in a certain direction, I have a little bit of the rebel in me. You know, I know, right? But you know, I'm like distrustful. It's a post-traumatic, like, but what happens is that I don't think this notion lends itself to a categorical and definitive analysis like that. I don't think salvation falls into a set of boxes that are mutually exclusive and exhaustive in categories. I was taught in logic. That's what it's really nice when you have well-behaved systems and terminology that sort of delineates things. This is different than that, and these are the only options that are there. But I don't think that's the way this works. And so the empiricists, the people who really like that stuff, like, well, we can't just throw it out. But what? Wait. Like, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't behave. There's a lot of stuff that's worth thinking about that doesn't reduce itself to categorical analysis. Like poetry, right? Like, this was the intention of the poet. The person who just did the piece of music set this up without knowing it. He said, I'm not going to even tell you what I think this song means. He said, we'll let you decide what it means. Because there's a whole realm of things that are subjective and creative. And when people come at me and say, this was Robert Frost's intention with this poem, and we can exactly tell what it is, I'm like, yeah, because I think that reflects the need of the person rather than the fact of the matter. And I think this is an important claim that I want to make, is that people who try to tame the horse of a thing that is kind of wild are reflecting a need in themselves to not have gray and fuzzy. But just because a thing is gray and fuzzy doesn't mean it's not worth looking at or thinking about. So let me hopscotch now onto a different sort of subject in a parallel discussion about recovery, addiction recovery. And when I started my journey of recovery, I came to the recovery community for one thing. And I thought as I began to experience that one thing, I had recovery, and previous to that, I didn't have recovery. It was cessation of consumption of alcohol. In fact, when my brother, who was clean and sober, said to me early on, Jack, if you smoke weed, you're not going to experience the promises of the program. I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, oh, crap. Because I really was thinking weed was not the issue. But the way he said it made me attempt early on to continue what I thought of then. I thought of that as total abstinence. So if I wasn't going to do weed, I wasn't going to do cocaine, I wasn't going to do alcohol, then I was pure and lily white. I was like, now I'm in recovery, and previously I was not. I have a story about an experience. This was a true experience. I moved to Berks County in 2008. That was long into my sobriety. I was almost 20 years sober. And a lot happened between those early years in 1989 and 1990 when I thought I am purely sober, and then I get to be a chaplain here at Caron. But I went to an AA meeting in the area here. It's a meeting that's still in vogue. It's one of the very popular meetings. I saw somebody that helps me out here at Chapel recently at that meeting. And it's the Kissinger meeting, if there are any local recovery folks around here. It's a great meeting. And I have new eyes for Berks County. I'm like looking at what I think sobriety looks like around here. And I'm also coming into my new vocation. The answer to my call is now going to be as an addiction chaplain rather than as a church pastor, or rather than an atheist angry about God. I've done all those things. But anyway, I went to the Kissinger meeting, and as I'm walking in, I hear two guys talking about their time in Atlantic City that weekend. And my radar goes, gambling. And then I go into the big room, and somebody brings in this huge tray of Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm like, because I know people who have disordered eating and for whom that is like a big trigger. And then I'm looking around the room and I see some guy hitting on a girl. So in my old classification, all 7 of those people are classified as sober. But with a 20-year into it, I'm like, this is a sick place. And these are sick people. I'm home. Please, I hope you heard the last part of it. I'm being really judgy, but what I'm saying is I had to evolve in my notion from my beginnings of thinking about recovery as binary and categorical and simple to realizing, no, this is like way more textured and layered than I had. You hear like people talk about peeling the layers of the onion. I have been to so many A fellowships, it's embarrassing. I've been to Al-Anon, I've been to ACOA, I've been to Narcotics Anonymous, I've been to Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been to Recovery Dharma, I'm certified in Smart Recovery, and there's a few others I'm not going to say on the mic. But, you know, it's not, I don't mind embarrassing myself, but I mean, I've had issues. And the issue is, as I've had to address these issues, I'm able to maintain the clock of saying it's this long since I've had a drink, but I understand it in a less simplistic way. I'm jumping back and forth here for a few minutes. When I was studying with Professor Kamanchak, and in fact when I was in the Methodist seminary environment, I was learning about the field is called soteriology. Soteriology is a branch of Christian theology that deals with the nature and teachings around salvation. And it turns out that it's a huge field all in itself. There's tons of writing about it. There's tons of proposals about what it is to say that Jesus is a saving, person, event, whatever. And there's lots of friendly and less friendly disagreement. But it's a subject area, soteriology. And as I studied soteriology, one of the things that, and I studied Greek, by the way, I studied biblical Greek, and I sometimes hate it when the preacher goes Greek, but here I go. So, salvation has this clue in the Latin root, salve. You know when you get a salve to heal your skin or whatever like that? But I thought of salvation as rescue from perdition, right? Like, you moral reject, you loser, get your moral act together. And that's what because I was influenced by narratives around the culture and the environment that depicted it. And also, this goes way back to, I'm going to get lost here, but to colonial America. And what happened in the colonization of Americas is that preachers could go to these remote areas, and in one visit to a remote outpost, they tried to bring the entire message of the Christian movement, and it brought this do you, don't you, will you not, and then they moved on to the next shack or shanty town or whatever like that, and they did this to the native population. It was just. But it became this once and done, and it became this sin, moral purity thing. That was it. And then I'm in soteriology studies, and I realized that the Greek word that goes behind this, which is why it's called soteriology, is soteria and sozo. Those are the Greek verbs and adjectives that talk about salvation. And in fact, they're words we have this in English all the time. We have words with multiple meanings. And one of the meanings is rescue, throw a donut in a person in the water. But another one of the meanings is healing. So when Jesus heals the blind person, he sozos the blind person. And when Jesus heals the paralytic, he sozos the paralytic. And when I heard that, I was like, and I wrote a paper actually about this, about salvation as healing. And I never knew how important that would be in my future journey. Although by the time I went to seminary, it was already 5 years in my recovery, and I think that's because I connected dots in a way that maybe other people. I was never able to hear this invitation to faith based on the moral purity narrative because I knew I was never going to make it. I'm still not a morally pure being, and I know I will never likely be. I'm way better than I used to be, but I'm still striving for cleaning some stuff up, including language. I'm pretty good on Sunday mornings here, but the patients know on Tuesday night it's like, bah. Anyway, my predecessor, Father Bill, was really good on this in a way. He had a very condensed formula, a couple of them. He was so good at being loquacious. Not loquacious. He was very, very concise. And sorry, private joke here. Anyway, two things he said. We are not sick people trying to get. We are not bad people trying to get good. We are sick people trying to get well. And then to fully collapse it, he had a 3-word thing: sickness, not sin. And so the invitation to recovery, I believe, then becomes a salvation message, right? In the sense that it's like, and this is a thing that American culture and the global culture is really 2 ways about also, or 6 ways about. Like, a lot of people come in here and they have terrible shame, and it's not shame that you wouldn't, I think you would have shame anyway because it's rough, but it's the shame from the stigma in the global culture and conversation. Because how many of you have shame? Like, I have celiac disease. Shame. No, my gut just processes gluten differently. But and some people who have celiac disease are called celiacs, right? So if I introduce myself and I say, my name's Jack and I'm a celiac, you would not think, ew. But there are tons of people who don't want to say my name is, Archie and I'm an alcoholic. Me being a celiac does not define all of who I am, nor does me being an alcoholic define all of who I am. Why do we go that way? It's because of this cloud of, stigmatization that attaches to the notion of what addiction is really about. We're still stuck in these antiquated ideas of this is moral failing. No matter how many brain science lectures I attend, I still apparently suffer from it too, because now here I am telling you I don't want to tell you the 12-step programs I go to, right? So apparently I haven't come around. Wow. So the message of Caron and of the recovery communities writ large is that there is a path out of this. And it's not a binary path. It's not a switch that you can flip where suddenly you are pure and lily white, or that you are just like it's a chronic illness, but you can move towards greater wellness as you abide with the proclivity towards and risk of reoccurrence that any cancer patient, any diabetic, any person with hyperlipidemia or hypercholesterol, like hyperlipidemia is high cholesterol, or hypertension, like many of us have chronic illnesses that we manage, and then the management of them allows us to flourish, even though there's a risk of death in all of those issues. So somehow I wanted to get like, woo, salvation, so come there with me. Like, remember that people don't get in these seats without being in pretty bad straits. So this is an awful thing, and they're like, oh, I can't believe we have to go to Caron. But what if this is like the beginning of the best thing that ever happened for you? It totally is for most people. And the outcomes here are really amazing once we stop measuring outcomes in that binary way. You never ever drink again and whatever. First of all, it's not just about drinking, but secondly, it's like sometimes people who do return to use do it less frequently. We're going to ruin your drinking, people. And eventually they get long-term sustained abstinence. That's what happens from this beginning exposure to the need of a shift in your life. And recovery is possible. This is one of our key statements as an organization, is to hold forth the truth that recovery is possible. It's possible for everyone. I could point at any one of you and say, it is in reach for you. And family members, there's a thing called family recovery. It is a real thing, and it is possible for you. The misery of being attached to a ship of a life that is going down that sort of drain hole need not be the defining characteristic of what makes you feel like your family's whole life is that way. You can find freedom, you can find wellness, you can find happiness, and all it really takes, which is so weird because this makes it sound so binary, is all it takes is a yes. All it takes is yes. I will start learning from you. I will start open-mindedness and willingness. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous says. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Tell the truth. Be willing to entertain change. And then take steps in that direction. So I hope you're excited about this salvation message, even if you were like me and I thought I would never like a salvation message. And it's Easter for half the Christian world. So it's the perfect day for a resurrection moment. Like, let's breathe again. Let's move from death to life. Let's move from sickness to wellness. Let's find our way into the joy of a proclamation. He is risen. Thanks. Be to God. Thanks.